In 1992, a rundown convent became the backdrop for pure magic, and a Reno lounge singer in a habit made the whole world sing along. But by 2026, the stars who brought Sister Act to life have walked very different paths: Oscar gold, television empires, heartbreaking losses, and a few beautiful transformations no one saw coming. So what happened after the final curtain call, when the choir robes came off and real life took over? Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from, and what was your favorite Sister Act moment? And if you love classic film stories, forgotten Hollywood journeys, and emotional transformations like this, make sure you subscribe now. Now let's step back into 1992 and discover what became of the unforgettable cast of Sister Act. Number 1. Whoopi Goldberg as Sister Mary Clarence Deloris Van Cartier. The Reno lounge singer turned Sister Mary Clarence in 1992 was brought to life by Whoopi Goldberg, and she didn't just play the part, she owned every frame. She was born Karen Elaine Johnson on November 13, 1955 in Manhattan, New York City, and she was 36 years old when Sister Act began filming. Deloris wasn't written as a typical fish out of water character. She had street smarts, sharp humor, a refusal to be invisible, and the kind of presence that turned a struggling convent choir into something people wanted to hear. Goldberg played her with warmth, wit, and just enough edge to make the transformation feel earned rather than forced. And that's why audiences believed in her from the opening scene in the nightclub all the way to the packed church at the end. Goldberg's impact on Sister Act went beyond her performance. She helped shape the film's tone. Director Emile Ardolino and the writers knew they had someone who could balance comedy with genuine emotion, and Goldberg delivered both without ever losing the character's authenticity. The scene where Deloris first hears the choir and realizes how much work she has to do became a masterclass in reaction comedy. No words needed, just her face telling the entire story. When she finally gets the nuns to loosen up and sing with soul, the audience feels the victory because Goldberg made us believe in the stakes. She wasn't playing down to the material, she elevated it, turning what could have been a simple comedy into something with real heart. After Sister Act became a cultural phenomenon and one of the highest-grossing films of 1992, Goldberg's career didn't just continue, it exploded into legend. She had already won an Oscar for Ghost in 1901, and Sister Act cemented her as a box office powerhouse who could carry a film on charisma alone. She became one of only 17 people to achieve EGOT status, winning an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, a rare feat that proved her talent stretched across every major entertainment platform. Her work on The View as a co-host since 2007 made her a daily presence in American homes, where her unfiltered opinions and humor kept her relevant to new generations. She returned to Broadway multiple times, produced films and television projects, voiced characters in beloved franchises, and never stopped working. Her chemistry with the cast, especially Maggie Smith, created sparks that made the film unforgettable. Their scenes together crackled with tension and mutual respect, two strong women from completely different worlds learning to see each other clearly. Goldberg also brought out the best in her fellow nuns, making Kathy Najimy, Wendy McKenna, and the entire ensemble feel like a real community rather than background players. That's the mark of a true star, someone who lifts everyone around them. Goldberg also became an advocate, speaking openly about race, women's rights, and social justice, using her platform in ways that went far beyond entertainment. In 2026, Whoopi Goldberg is 70 years old, and her legacy is staggering. She didn't just survive Hollywood as a black woman in an industry that often sidelined people like her, she redefined what was possible. Sister Act remains one of her most beloved roles, a film that still plays on repeat in homes around the world. And Deloris Van Cartier is remembered as a character who brought joy, laughter, and a little bit of rebellion to a story about faith and friendship. Goldberg proved that a leading lady didn't need to fit a mold. She could break it completely and still become iconic. Even decades later, Whoopi Goldberg's name is synonymous with Sister Act, and thus remains a touchstone in pop culture, quoted, referenced, and celebrated as one of the great comedies of the 90s. Number 2. Maggie Smith as Reverend Mother. Reverend Mother Superior, the stern but secretly warming authority figure who runs St. Catherine's Convent, was portrayed by Dame Maggie Smith, and she brought a dignity to the role that could have easily been one note, but instead became the film's moral and comedic anchor. She was born Margaret Natalie Smith on December 28, 1934, in Ilford, Essex, England, and she was 57 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Reverend Mother wasn't written as a villain or a pushover. She was a woman of deep faith trying to hold together a failing convent with limited resources and even less hope. and Smith's performance gave her layers that made every scene she was in feel important. The way she looks at Deloris with suspicion, then slowly begins to respect her, then finally defends her when danger comes, that's a complete character arc delivered with subtle precision. Smith's gift has always been her ability to show you what's happening beneath the surface without saying a word. When Reverend Mother realizes the choir is actually drawing people back to the church, you can see the conflict on her face, relief mixed with reluctance to admit that this loud, unconventional woman in a borrowed habit might actually be an answer to prayer. Her comedic timing in Sister Act is flawless, especially in moments where she is trying to maintain control while chaos unfolds around her. The dinner scenes where Deloris breaks every rule of convent etiquette and Reverend Mother has to sit there and absorb it without exploding. That's physical comedy delivered through sheer restraint, and it works because Smith never winks at the camera. She plays it completely straight, which makes it even funnier. After Sister Act, Maggie Smith didn't need the film to sustain her career. She was already a legend, but it introduced her to a whole new generation who might not have known her from the prime of Miss Jean Brodie or California Suite, both of which earned her Academy Awards. What came next, though, brought her to global superstardom in ways even she probably didn't anticipate. In 2001, she became Professor Minerva McGonagall in the Harry Potter film series, a role she would play across 8 films over the next decade, and millions of children around the world grew up seeing her as the strict but fiercely protective teacher at Hogwarts. Then in 2010, Downton Abbey premiered, and as the Dowager Countess Violet Crawley, Smith delivered one iconic line after another, becoming the show's scene-stealing centerpiece and winning 3 Emmy Awards for the role. Her career spans more than 6 decades with 2 Academy Awards, 4 additional Oscar nominations, 5 BAFTA Awards, 3 Golden Globes, and countless stage triumphs, including working with Laurence Olivier at the National Theatre. Smith was made a Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 1990, recognizing her contributions to the performing arts. Even after being treated for breast cancer in 2007 and 2008, she continued working with the same commitment and excellence that defined her entire life. In 2026, Dame Maggie Smith is 91 years old, and her legacy is untouchable. She represents a kind of acting that doesn't chase trends or rely on gimmicks, just pure craft honed over a lifetime. In Sister Act, she gave Reverend Mother a humanity that made the whole story believable, because if you didn't believe in her journey from rigid authority to open-hearted ally, the film wouldn't work. Smith made you believe, and she did it with grace, wit, and a raised eyebrow that could communicate volumes. Her performance remains one of the film's greatest gifts. Number 3, Harvey Keitel as Vince LaRocca. Vince LaRocca, the ruthless mob boss whose desire to silence a witness sets the entire story into motion, was portrayed by Harvey Keitel, and he brought a menace to the role that made every scene he appeared in feel dangerous. He was born Harvey Keitel on May 13, 1939 in Brooklyn, New York, and he was 52 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Vince wasn't just a cartoon villain. Keitel played him as a man who genuinely believes Hez has been disrespected and wronged, which makes him more terrifying because his logic is twisted but completely sincere. The opening scene where Deloris witnesses the murder her boyfriend ordered. That's the moment that launches everything, and Keitel's cold fury in that sequence tells you exactly what kind of threat she's running from for the rest of the film. Keitel has always had a gift for playing men who live outside the law, but still operate by their own strict codes, and Vince LaRocca is no exception. Hez not screaming or chewing scenery, he's controlled, calculating, and patient, which makes him far more frightening than a loudmouth gangster would have been. The moments where he's searching for Deloris, methodically tracking her down while she hides in plain sight at the convent, those scenes work because Keitel plays them with focus and intensity. You believe this man will not stop until he finds her, and that constant threat hanging over the film gives the comedy real stakes. Without a villain you take seriously, Sister Act would have been a much lighter, fluffier movie, but Keitel grounds it in danger. After Sister Act, Harvey Keitel's career exploded in ways that redefined him as one of the greatest character actors of his generation. In 1992, the same year Sister Act was released, he starred in Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's directorial debut, playing Mr. White with a wounded intensity that became one of the film's emotional anchors. Then in 1994, he appeared in Pulp Fiction as Winston Wolfe, the fixer who shows up to solve problems with calm professionalism, delivering one of the most quoted performances in modern cinema. That same year, He earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his role in The Piano, playing a character so different from his tough guy roles that it reminded everyone just how wide his range actually is. Cato's career stretches back to the early 1970s when he worked with Martin Scorsese on Mean Streets and Taxi Driver, establishing himself as a fixture in gritty, character-driven cinema. He continued working steadily across decades, appearing in films like Thelma and Louise, Bad Lieutenant, Bugsy Smoke, and many others, often playing complicated men navigating moral gray areas. His willingness to take risks and disappear into roles, no matter how dark or uncomfortable, made him a favorite among directors who wanted authenticity over movie star polish. Keitel also became known for mentoring younger actors and supporting independent filmmaking, using his reputation to help projects get made. In 2026, Harvey Keitel is 86 years old, and his legacy as one of cinema's most fearless actors is secure. He didn't need Sister Act to define his career, but his work as Vince LaRocca showed he could bring the same intensity to a mainstream comedy that he brought to independent dramas. That versatility, the ability to be genuinely threatening in a family-friendly film without ever softening the edges, is what made him perfect for the role. Keitel proved that even in a movie about nuns and music, the danger has to feel real, and he delivered that danger with precision. Number 4, Kathy Najimy as Sister Mary Patrick. Sister Mary Patrick, the bubbly, endlessly enthusiastic nun who brings pure joy to every scene, was portrayed by Kathy Najimy, and she turned what could have been a simple comic relief role into one of the film's most memorable and beloved characters. She was born Kathy Ann Najimy on February 6, 1957 in San Diego, California, and she was 35 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Sister Mary Patrick, once written with much backstory or complexity, but Najimy gave her such infectious energy and genuine warmth that she became the emotional heartbeat of the convent choir. Every time she appears on screen, smiling wide, bouncing with excitement, or trying desperately to follow the rules while her curiosity gets the better of her, you can't help but smile back. Najimy's gift is making sweetness feel authentic instead of cloying. Sister Mary Patrick could have been annoying in the wrong hands, too perky, too naive, too one-dimensional, but Najimy plays her with such sincerity that her enthusiasm becomes endearing. When she gets excited about the choir finally sounding good, when she sneaks out to follow Deloris and gets caught up in the adventure, when she looks at Reverend Mother with wide eyes, hoping she won't get in trouble, those moments work because Najimy commits completely. She's not winking at the audience or playing it for camp. She's playing a woman who genuinely loves her life at the convent and sees Dolores' arrival as the most exciting thing that's happened in years. After Sister Act became a hit, Najimy returned for Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit in 1993, reprising the role with the same energy and charm. But her career didn't stop there. It expanded in directions that made her a fixture in American pop culture. In 1993, she starred alongside Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker in Hocus Pocus, playing Mary Sanderson, one of the 3 witch sisters brought back to life on Halloween night. The film became a cult classic and a seasonal tradition for millions of families, and Najimy's physical comedy and distinctive voice work made Mary one of the most quotable characters in the movie. Decades later, in 2022, she reprised the role in Hocus Pocus 2, proving that the character had staying power across generations. Najimy also became the voice of Peggy Hill on the animated series King of the Hill, which ran from 1997 to 2010. Her vocal performance as the well-meaning but often misguided substitute teacher became iconic, earning her recognition in the voice acting world and introducing her to a whole new audience. Beyond acting, Najimy became a passionate activist advocating for LGBTQ+ rights, women's rights, and animal welfare. She used her platform to support causes she believed in, speaking openly about equality and justice in ways that went far beyond her entertainment career. In 2026, Kathy Najimy is 69 years old, and her legacy is built on characters that make people feel good. Sister Mary Patrick remains one of her most cherished roles, a character who represents pure, unfiltered joy in a world that often tries to dim that kind of light. Najimy proved that kindness and enthusiasm aren't weaknesses, they're strengths, and that a character who leads with her heart can be just as powerful as one who leads with wit or intelligence. Her performance in Sister Act still brings smiles decades later, and that's the kind of legacy that lasts. Number 5, Wendy McKenna as Sister Mary Robert. Sister Mary Robert, the shy, soft-spoken young nun who discovers her voice and transforms into the emotional heart of the choir, was portrayed by Wendy McKenna, and she brought a quiet vulnerability to the role that made her character arc one of the most satisfying in the entire film. She was born Wendy Rosenberg McKenna on October 4th, 1963 in New York City, and she was 28 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Sister Mary Robert starts the film afraid of her own shadow, barely able to speak above a whisper, and watching her journey from timid silence to confident soloist is the kind of transformation that makes audiences root for a character from the first moment she appears on screen. McKenna's performance is all about subtlety and restraint. She doesn't overplay the shyness or turn Sister Mary Robert into a caricature. Instead, she shows you a young woman who genuinely doubts herself, who has been told to stay small and quiet for so long that she believes that's all she can be. The scenes where Deloris first tries to coax her out of her shell, encouraging her to sing louder, to take up space, to believe in her own abilities, those moments land because McKenna plays them with real emotion. You can see the fear and hope battling on her face, and when she finally lets go and sings with her full voice during the climactic performance, it's a genuine triumph that feels earned rather than manufactured. It's important to note that while McKenna performed Sister Mary Robert on screen with full emotional commitment, the character's singing voice was actually provided by Andrea Robinson, a professional vocalist whose powerful vocals gave Sister Mary Robert's musical transformation the soaring quality it needed. This kind of vocal dubbing was common in Hollywood, and it doesn't diminish McKenna's contribution. It shows how collaborative filmmaking can bring together different talents to create something memorable. McKenna sold the emotional journey, Robinson delivered the vocal fireworks, and together they created a character audiences never forgot. After Sister Act, McKenna returned for Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit in 1993, continuing Sister Mary Roberts' story. She also appeared in the beloved film A League of Their Own in 1992, playing one of the baseball players in the all-female league, showing her range beyond just playing nuns. Her career continued with steady work in television and film, including guest appearances on popular shows and roles in independent films. In 2013, she starred in the faith-based film Finding Normal, playing a woman searching for meaning and direction in her life, a role that echoed some of the themes from Sister Act in more grounded, dramatic ways. McKenna also built a successful theater career, returning to the stage where she had originally trained and honed her craft. She worked in regional theater productions and off-Broadway shows, proving that her talents extended far beyond the screen. While she never became a household name in the way some of her Sister Act castmates did, she built a respectable, sustainable career doing work she believed in. And that's a different kind of success that deserves recognition. In 2026, Wendy McKenna is 62 years old, and her legacy is tied to a character who represents the journey from self-doubt to self-belief. Sister Mary Robert remains one of the most relatable characters in Sister Act because so many people see themselves in her struggle to find their voice and claim their space in the world. McKenna gave that struggle a face, a heart, and a quiet strength that still resonates with audiences who watch the film and remember what it feels like to finally step into the light. Number 6. Mary Wickes as Sister Mary Lazarus. Sister Mary Lazarus, the sarcastic, sharp-tongued elderly nun who steals every single scene she appears in with perfect deadpan delivery and impeccable comic timing, was portrayed by Mary Wickes, and she brought decades of professional experience to a role that could have been throwaway, but instead became unforgettable. She was born Mary Isabel Wickenhauser on June 13, 1910 in St. Louis, Missouri, and she was an astonishing 81 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Sister Mary Lazarus doesn't have a large role in terms of screen time, but Wickes makes every second count, delivering one-liners with such precision that they became some of the most quoted moments in the entire film. Wickes had a gift that only comes from a lifetime of work. She knew exactly how to land a joke without ever appearing to try. When Sister Mary Lazarus looks at the chaos around her with a raised eyebrow and a dry comment, when she rolls her eyes at the younger nun's enthusiasm, when she begrudgingly admits that the new choir arrangements are actually good, those moments work because Wickes plays them completely straight. She never telegraphs the punchline, never winks at the camera, never breaks character to let you know she's being funny, and that's what makes her so funny. Her timing was flawless, honed over decades of stage and screen work, and Sister Act benefited enormously from having someone with her level of skill in the ensemble. Before Sister Act made her a beloved figure to a new generation, Mary Wickes had already built one of the longest and most respected careers in Hollywood history. She started working in film in the 1930s and never really stopped. She appeared in classics like The Man Who Came to Dinner in 1942, White Christmas in 1954 alongside Bing Crosby, and The Music Man in 1962. She worked in television for decades, making memorable guest appearances on shows ranging from I Love Lucy to The Twilight Zone to Murder, She Wrote. Wicks was the kind of actress directors loved to cast because she could do anything: drama, comedy, musicals, and she always showed up prepared and professional. Her physical comedy was just as sharp as her verbal delivery. Watch the scenes in Sister Act, where Sister Mary Lazarus reluctantly participates in the choir rehearsals, moving with exaggerated slowness or giving Deloris a look that could curdle milk, and you're watching a master at work. Wicks understood that comedy often comes from resistance, from a character who doesn't want to go along with the plan but gets dragged into it anyway, and she played that resistance with expert precision. She also had a warmth underneath the sarcasm that made Sister Mary Lazarus feel like a real person rather than just a collection of jokes. After Sister Act, Wicks returned for Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit in 1993, once again stealing scenes with ease. She continued working almost until the very end of her life, providing the voice of Laverne, the gargoyle in Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, though she passed away before the film was completed and the role was finished by another actress. Mary Wicks died on October 22, 1995 at the age of 85, leaving behind a legacy that spanned more than 6 decades of entertainment. In Sister Act, she proved that age is never a barrier to being the funniest person in the room, and her performance as Sister Mary Lazarus remains a masterclass in how to make the most of every moment you're given on screen. She didn't need long speeches or elaborate setups, just perfect timing and a lifetime of knowing exactly how to make people laugh. Number 7. Bill Nunn as Lieutenant Eddie Souther. Lieutenant Eddie Souther, the dedicated San Francisco police officer assigned to protect Deloris while Shiz in witness protection, was portrayed by Bill Nunn, and he brought a warmth and genuine humanity to the role that made him far more than just the cop keeping watch. He was born William Goldwyn Nunn III on October 20, 1953 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he was 38 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Eddie Souther could have been a stock character, the stern law enforcement figure who exists only to move the plot forward, but Nunn gave him depth, humor, and a protective instinct that felt personal rather than procedural. You could see that Eddie actually cares about Deloris' safety, not just because it's his job, but because he respects her courage and wants to see her make it through this ordeal alive. Nunn's performance is built on subtlety and sincerity. Watch the scenes where Hez checking in on Deloris at the convent, trying to reassure her while also dealing with his own frustrations that the case is taking so long to come to trial. And you see an actor who understands that supporting characters need to feel like real people with their own concerns and motivations. Eddie isn't just standing around waiting to deliver exposition. He's actively worried, actively problem-solving, and actively invested in the outcome. The way Nunn plays those moments, with a mix of professional competence and genuine compassion, makes Eddie Souther one of the most likable characters in the film, even though he has relatively limited screen time. After Sister Act, Bill Nunn's career continued to build momentum, and he became a recognizable face in some of the biggest films of the 90s and 2000s. He had already made a strong impression in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing in 1989, playing Radio Raheem in a performance that became iconic for its intensity and cultural significance. He continued working with Spike Lee on multiple projects, establishing himself as part of Lee's regular ensemble. But his most widely recognized role came when he was cast as Joseph Robbie Robertson, the editor at the Daily Bugle, in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy starting in 2002. Over 3 films, Nunn played Robbie as the voice of reason in J. Jonah Jameson's chaotic newsroom, and his calm, grounded presence provided a perfect counterbalance to the bluster around him. Nunn also appeared in New Jack City, Candyman, The Last Seduction, and Spike Lee's He Got Game, building a filmography that showed his range across genres from crime dramas to horror to sports films. He had a gift for playing characters with integrity, men who did the right thing even when it wasn't easy, and that quality made him perfect for roles like Eddie Souther. Beyond his screen work, Nunn was known in the industry as a kind and generous person, someone who mentored younger actors and treated every project with professionalism and respect. Tragically, Bill Nunn passed away on September 24, 2016, at the age of 62 after a battle with leukemia. His death was a loss felt deeply by colleagues and fans who had watched him bring warmth and authenticity to dozens of roles over a 30-year career. In 2026, he has been gone for nearly a decade, but his work endures, And his performance in Sister Act remains a reminder that even smaller roles can leave a lasting impression when they're played by someone who brings their full heart to the work. Eddie Souther was more than just the cop in the story. He was the person who made sure Dolores knew she wasn't alone, and Bill Nunn made that protection feel real. Number 8. Joseph Marr as Monsignor O'Hara. Monsignor O'Hara, the befuddled but well-meaning church administrator caught between ecclesiastical protocol and the chaos that Dolores brings to St. Catherine's, was portrayed by Joseph Maher, and he played the role with a gentle confusion that made every scene he appeared in quietly hilarious. He was born on December 29, 1933 in Westport, County Mayo, Ireland, and he was 58 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Monsignor O'Hara wasn't written as a villain or even a real obstacle. He was simply a man of the cloth, trying to maintain order in a world that stopped making sense. And Veyer's performance captured that bewilderment perfectly, without ever turning the character into a fool. Mayer's gift was playing authority figures who were slightly out of their depth, but never mean-spirited about it. Monsignor O'Hara represents the traditional church establishment, a man who believes in rules, hierarchy, and doing things the proper way. But when confronted with a lounge singer disguised as a nun who turns the convent upside down, he doesn't know how to respond. The scenes where he visits St. Catherine's and discovers the nuns singing Motown arrangements in church, where he tries to express his concerns to Reverend Mother, while also being visibly charmed by the packed pews and renewed energy, those moments work because Marr plays them with genuine emotion rather than broad comedy. You believe this man is torn between his responsibility to uphold tradition and his recognition that something good is actually happening. Before Sister Act, Joseph Maher had built a distinguished career primarily on the stage, where he earned a Tony Award nomination for Best Featured Actor in a play for his performance in Spokesong in 1979. He was a consummate stage actor, trained in classical theater and equally comfortable in comedies and dramas. His work on Broadway and in regional theater throughout the 70s and 80s established him as a respected character actor with impeccable timing and a commanding presence that could fill a room without ever raising his voice. Maher's screen work included memorable appearances in film and television throughout the 80s and 90s. He appeared in movies like Funny Farm with Chevy Chase, The Evil That Men Do, and In and Out, always bringing professionalism and subtle humor to his roles. On television, he made guest appearances on shows ranging from Murder, She Wrote to Law & Order, often playing doctors, priests, professors, or other figures of authority. His Irish accent, cultured voice, and dignified bearing made him perfect for roles that required a certain gravitas mixed with accessibility. After Sister Act, Marr continued working steadily in both mediums, never achieving household name status, but always being someone casting directors called when they needed someone reliable and talented. He understood that not every role needs to be a star turn, that sometimes the best work comes from serving the story and elevating the people around you. That kind of professionalism, built over decades of work, is what made him so effective in Sister Act, even though his total screen time is relatively brief. Tragically, Joseph Marr passed away on July 17, 1998, at the age of 64 after a battle with a brain tumor. He died far too young, with many more performances left in him, but the work he left behind speaks to a career built on craft, dedication, and a deep love for acting. In 2026, more than a quarter century after his death, his performance as Monsignor O'Hara still brings gentle laughs to audiences who watch Sister Act and appreciate the way he played a man trying to do the right thing while the ground kept shifting beneath his feet. Maher made ecclesiastical bureaucracy charming, and that's no small achievement. Number 9. Jennifer Lewis Michelle, the sassy, street-smart lounge singer and loyal friend who stands by Dolores before everything falls apart, was portrayed by Jennifer Lewis. And even though her screen time in Sister Act is brief, she made every second memorable with her powerhouse presence and undeniable charisma. She was born Jennifer Jeanette Lewis on January 25, 1957 in Kinloch, Missouri, and she was 35 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Michelle represents Dolores' real life before witness protection, the world of nightclubs, sequins, and performing where the two women worked side by side, and Lewis brought an authenticity to that friendship that grounded the opening scenes of the film. Lewis has always had a gift for commanding attention the moment she walks into a frame. In Sister Act, she doesn't get a big character arc or multiple scenes to develop Michelle, but what she does get, she absolutely owns. The energy she brings to those early nightclub sequences helps establish the world Dolores is being torn away from, a world where she has friends, a career, and a life that matters to her. Losing all of that to go into hiding becomes more meaningful, because Lewis made that world feel real and vibrant in just a few short moments. After Sister Act, Jennifer Lewis didn't just continue her career, she became a cultural icon, earning the title Black Hollywood's Mama, and later the Mother of Black Hollywood for her decades of supporting, mentoring, and uplifting other performers. Her filmography is staggering, with scene-stealing roles in The Preacher's Wife, Think Like a Man, and countless other films where there's wisdom, humor, and unapologetic confidence to every character. But her most defining role came in 2014 when she was cast as Ruby Johnson, the larger-than-life grandmother on the hit ABC sitcom Blackish. Over 8 seasons, Lewis made Ruby one of television's most beloved characters, winning multiple TAPE Image Awards and finally getting the recognition her talent had always deserved. Lewis is also known for her incredible one-woman show and her candid memoir, The Mother of Black Hollywood, where she opened up about her struggles with bipolar disorder, her journey to mental health stability, and her determination to break stigmas around mental illness in the Black community. Her honesty and vulnerability made her not just an entertainer but an advocate and role model for people dealing with their own challenges. Beyond acting, she became a powerful voice for mental health awareness, LGBTQ+ rights, and representation in Hollywood. In 2026, Jennifer Lewis is 69 years old, and her legacy is built on decades of showing up, doing the work, and never letting Hollywood dim her light. From Sister Act to Black-ish and everything in between, she has proven that supporting roles are only small if the actor playing them is small, and Lewis has never been anything less than enormous. Her performance as Michelle may have been brief, but it was part of a career that changed what it means to be a character actress in Hollywood. Number 10. Charlotte Crossley, as Choir Nun 1 of the Convent Choir Nuns, who brought authentic vocal power and musical credibility to Sister Act, was Charlotte Crossley, and her presence in the film connected directly to a legendary music career that predated the movie by decades. She was born Charlotte Crossley in the 1940s, and while her exact birth date has remained private throughout her career, what isn't private is her remarkable musical legacy. Before she ever stepped into a nun's habit for Sister Act, Crossley had already made history as an original member of the Fifth Dimension, one of the most successful vocal groups of the late 1960s and 1970s. The Fifth Dimensions wasn't just any singing group, they were a cultural phenomenon. With hits like Aquarius Let the Sun Shine In, Up and Away, One Less Bell to Answer, and Wedding Bell Blues, they dominated the charts and won multiple Grammy Awards, becoming one of the defining sounds of their era. Crossley joined the group and contributed her powerful voice to their signature harmonies, helping create a sound that blended pop, soul, and jazz into something completely unique. When Sister Act needed nuns who could actually sing, casting someone like Charlotte Crossley wasn't just smart, it was essential because she brought decades of professional vocal experience to a film that was fundamentally about the transformative power of music. In Sister Act, Crossley appears as one of the choir nuns, and while her role didn't include speaking lines or a character arc, her vocal contributions were part of what made the choir scene so electrifying. The film's musical sequences needed to sound good enough to justify the plot, good enough that audiences would believe a struggling church could suddenly fill with people just to hear these nuns sing, and having real professionals like Crossley in the mix ensured that authenticity. Her presence also added a layer of credibility for music fans who recognized her from the Fifth Dimension and appreciated the respect the film showed by casting actual singers rather than just actors who could carry a tune. After Sister Act, Charlotte Crossley continued her music career, performing with various configurations of the Fifth Dimension over the years and maintaining her connection to the group's legacy. The Fifth Dimension was inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and their music continues to be celebrated as part of American pop culture history. Crossley's work with the group and her contributions to film projects like Sister Act represent a career spent in service to music, using her gift to bring joy and artistry to audiences across multiple generations. In 2026, Charlotte Crossley remains a respected figure in music history, and while Sister Act may not be the first thing people think of when they hear her name, her contribution to the film was meaningful. She represents the film's commitment to musical excellence, the understanding that a movie about singing had to actually sound great, and the respect shown to real musicians by giving them space to do what they do best. Her legacy is tied to the Fifth Dimension first and foremost, but Sister Act benefits from her presence in ways both obvious and subtle. Number 11. A.J. Johnson as Choir Nun, Another member of the convent choir who brought energy and authenticity to Sister Act was A.J. Johnson, and while her role in the film didn't include major speaking lines, her presence was part of the ensemble that made the choir feel like a real community of women rather than just background players. She was born Adrienne Joy Johnson on January 6, 1963, in Orange, New Jersey, and she was 29 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Johnson was already building a career in Hollywood when she joined the Sister Act cast, and her work in the film was part of a larger trajectory that would make her a recognizable face in 90s pop culture. Before Sister Act, A.J. Johnson had already made a significant impression in the 1990 film House Party, where she played Shireen, the girlfriend of one of the main characters. House Party became a surprise hit and a cultural touchstone, capturing the energy of Black youth culture with humor, heart, and an infectious soundtrack. Johnson's performance in that film showed her natural charisma and comic timing, qualities that served her well even in smaller ensemble roles like her work in Sister Act. Being part of the convent choir meant contributing to the film's musical magic, standing alongside other talented women, and helping create the vocal tapestry that transformed the struggling church into a packed house every Sunday. After Sister Act, A.J. Johnson continued working steadily throughout the 90s and 2000s, appearing in films that became cult classics and defining pieces of Black cinema. She had a memorable role in Baby Boy, John Singleton's 2001 starring Tyrese Gibson, where she played Juanita, bringing depth and authenticity to a character navigating complex family dynamics. She also appeared in The Players Club in 1998, directed by Ice Cube, where she was part of an ensemble cast telling stories about women working in the world of exotic dancing, a film that sparked conversations about representation, agency, and survival. Johnson also made her mark in television, with guest appearances on shows throughout the decades, and she became known for being willing to take on challenging roles that other actresses might have avoided. Her willingness to portray complicated, flawed, real women made her a favorite among directors who valued authenticity over polish. She also worked extensively in independent films, supporting projects that told stories about communities often overlooked by mainstream Hollywood. Beyond acting, A.J. Johnson became an advocate for mental health awareness and self-care, speaking openly about the challenges of working in an industry that can be both rewarding and brutal. She used her platform to encourage younger performers to protect their mental and emotional well-being while pursuing their dreams, offering mentorship and wisdom earned through her own experiences navigating Hollywood as a Black woman. In 2026, A.J. Johnson is 63 years old, and her career represents the kind of steady, unglamorous work that keeps the entertainment industry running. She may not have become a household name or won major awards, but she built a body of work that spans decades and includes films that mattered to the people who watched them. Her contribution to Sister Act was part of that larger tapestry, one thread in a career woven from persistence, talent, and a commitment to showing up and doing the work no matter the size of the role. Number 12. Richard Portnow as Joey. Joey, one of Vince LaRocca's loyal mob enforcers who spends the film hunting for Deloris alongside his partner, was portrayed by Richard Portnow, and he brought a working-class toughness to the role that made the threat feel real without ever turning the character into a cartoon villain. He was born Richard Portnow on January 7, 1947 in Brooklyn, New York, and he was 45 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Joey and his partner Willie represent the constant danger lurking just outside the convent walls. The reminder that Deloris can't truly relax or feel safe no matter how well she hides, and Portnow played that menace with a blue-collar everyman quality that made him more frightening than if he had been over the top. Portnow's gift has always been his ability to disappear into character actor roles, playing cops, criminals, businessmen, and working stiffs with equal conviction. In Sister Act, Joey isn't a genius or a mastermind. He's just a guy doing his job for a mob boss, methodically searching for the woman who witnessed a murder, and that grounded approach makes every scene he appears in feel tense. The moments where Joey and Willie are canvassing neighborhoods, showing Deloris' photo to people, getting closer and closer to finding her, those sequences work because Portnow plays it straight, like a man clocking in for work, rather than chewing scenery for dramatic effect. Before Sister Act, Richard Portnow had already built an extensive resume playing similar types of roles in major films. He appeared in Good Morning Vietnam in 1987 alongside Robin Williams, playing a military officer with the kind of buttoned-up authority that contrasted perfectly with Williams' manic energy. He was in Barton Fink in 1991, the Coen brothers' surreal masterpiece, bringing his trademark intensity to a film that demanded actors who could play real people in increasingly unreal situations. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Portnow became one of those faces you recognized even if you didn't know his name. The guy who showed up in everything from comedies to dramas to crime thrillers and always delivered solid, professional work. After Sister Act, Portnow's career continued in the same vein, racking up credits in films like Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai in 1999, where he played a mob figure in Jim Jarmusch's Meditation on Loyalty and Violence, and Pool Hall Junkies in 2002. He worked steadily in television as well, with guest appearances on countless shows spanning multiple decades, always playing variations on the same AIM archetype: the tough guy, the cop, the criminal, the authority figure. That kind of consistency requires discipline and professionalism. Showing up prepared, hitting your marks, delivering your lines, and letting the story move forward. In 2026, Richard Portnow is 79 years old, and his career is a testament to the value of character actors who do the work without seeking the spotlight. He has more than 200 credits to his name across film and television, a staggering number that speaks to decades of steady employment in an industry where most actors struggle to find work at all. His performance in Sister Act as Joey is part of that larger legacy, one role among hundreds, but a role that contributed to making the film work by giving the comedy real stakes and real danger. Number 13, Robert Miranda as Willie. Willie, Joey's partner in crime and the other half of the mob enforcer duo hunting Deloris throughout Sister Act, was portrayed by Robert Miranda, and he brought a different energy than his partner, playing Willie with a slightly more nervous, less confident edge that made the pair feel like a complete unit rather than two identical thugs. He was born Robert Miranda on July 29, 1952, in the Bronx, New York, and he was 39 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. While Joey seemed more comfortable in his role as an enforcer, Willie often appeared slightly out of his depth, and that contrast made their scenes together more interesting and added a layer of dark comedy to their search for the missing witness. Miranda understood that playing the second member of a duo requires a different skill set than being the lead. He had to complement Richard Portnow's performance while still creating a distinct character. And he did that by making Willie more reactive, more visibly frustrated when leads dried up, more eager to please Vince LaRocca by finding Deloris quickly. Those small choices in performance give Willie a personality beyond just being another mobster, and they make the scenes where the two enforcers are closing in on St. Catherine's feel more dynamic because you have two different types of energy working together toward the same goal. Before Sister Act, Robert Miranda had been working steadily in film and television throughout the 1980s, building a career similar to many New York-based character actors by playing cops, criminals, working-class guys, and authority figures across a wide range of projects. He appeared in the crime drama Q&A in 1990, directed by Sidney Lumet and starring Nick Nolte, where he was part of an ensemble exploring corruption and morality in the New York City Police Department. He also worked extensively in television, making guest appearances on shows that needed actors who could bring authenticity to street-level characters. After Sister Act, Miranda continued the pattern that defined his career, working consistently across multiple decades in both film and television, without ever becoming a household name but always being someone casting directors could rely on to show up and do professional work. He appeared in television series throughout the 90s and 2000s, often playing law enforcement or criminals in procedural dramas and crime shows. His face became one of those recognizable presences that popped up across different shows and films, always believable, always grounded, always serving the story rather than trying to steal scenes. What made Robert Miranda's career sustainable was his willingness to be a team player, to take roles that supported the larger narrative without demanding the spotlight, and to bring the same level of commitment to a small part in a comedy like Sister Act as he would to a dramatic role in a crime film. That kind of professionalism is what keeps the entertainment industry functioning, and it's what allows films to feel populated with real people rather than just stars and extras with nothing in between. In 2026, Robert Miranda is 73 years old, and his career represents the working actor who built a life in the business through consistency, reliability, and craft. His performance as Willie in Sister Act is part of a larger body of work that spans decades, and while he may not have awards or star billing, he has something equally valuable, a resume that shows he worked steadily for over 40 years doing what he loved. Number 14. Max Grodenchik as Ernie, one of the supporting characters in the criminal underworld surrounding Vince LaRocca, was portrayed by Max Grodenchik, and while his role in Sister Act was relatively small, it was part of a career that would later catapult him to cult fame in the science fiction community. He was born Max Grodenchik on November 12, 1952 in Queens, New York, and he was 39 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. In the film, Grodenchik brought his natural ability to play quirky, memorable characters to a role that didn't require much screen time, but still needed to feel like a real person operating in Vince LaRocca's criminal world. Grodenchik had been working in Hollywood since the early 1980s, appearing in various films and television shows, often playing character roles that required distinctive looks or unusual personalities. Before Sister Act, he had small parts in films like Lady Hawk and Crossroads, and he made guest appearances on television shows, ranging from dramas to comedies. What set Grodenchik apart was his willingness to embrace prosthetics, makeup, and transformation, skills that would serve him incredibly well in the role that would define his career just a few years after Sister Act was released. In 1993, just 1 year after Sister Act, Max Grodenchik was cast as Rom on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and that role changed everything. Rom was a Ferengi, an alien species known for their large ears, distinctive appearance, and obsession with profit, and Grodenchik played the character for all 7 seasons of the show, from 1993 to 1999. What started as a minor recurring character grew into one of the show's most beloved figures as Rom evolved from a bumbling waiter to a brilliant engineer to eventually the Grand Nagus, the leader of his entire species. Grodenchik's performance gave Rom heart, humor, and unexpected depth, making him a fan favorite and cementing Grodenchik's place in Star Trek history. The Star Trek role required Grodenchik to spend hours in makeup before every shoot, wearing heavy prosthetics that completely transformed his appearance, and he did it with professionalism and good humor for 7 years. His work on Deep Space Nine made him a fixture at Star Trek conventions around the world, where fans celebrated his contribution to one of the franchise's most critically acclaimed series. Rom became more than just a side character. He became a symbol of how even someone from a species defined by greed could grow, change, and become a hero. After Deep Space Nine ended, Grodenchik continued to work in television and film, though nothing matched the cultural impact of his Star Trek role. He appeared in various shows and independent films, and he remained active in the Star Trek fan community, attending conventions and celebrating the show's legacy with the people who loved it. In 2026, Max Grodenchik is 73 years old, and while Sister Act is part of his filmography, his legacy is primarily tied to the science fiction world where he spent 7 years bringing an unlikely hero to life. His brief appearance in Sister Act represents the kind of work that keeps actors employed between bigger projects, and his career arc shows how one role can completely redefine an actor's place in pop culture. From a small part in a Whoopi Goldberg comedy to becoming a beloved figure in the Star Trek universe, Grodenchik's journey is a reminder that you never know which role will change your life. Number 15. Toni Kalem as Connie. One of the women connected to Vince LaRocca's world in Sister Act was portrayed by Toni Kalem, and while her screen time in the film was limited, her career trajectory after Sister Act became one of the most interesting among the supporting cast. She was born Antoinette Kalem on August 25, 1956 in New Jersey, and she was 35 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. Kalem brought a naturalistic, grounded quality to her work, the kind of authenticity that comes from growing up around the real people and neighborhoods that Hollywood often tries to recreate, and that authenticity would serve her well in the role that would define her career years later. Before Sister Act, Toni Kalem had been working as an actress in film and television since the late 1970s, appearing in various projects but never quite breaking through to major stardom. She had roles in independent films and made guest appearances on television shows, building a resume that showed she was a working professional even if her name wasn't above the title. Her connection to New Jersey and her understanding of Italian-American culture would become valuable assets as her career evolved beyond just acting. In 1999, 7 years after Sister Act, Toni Kalem joined the cast of The Sopranos, one of the most critically acclaimed and culturally significant television shows in history, and she played Angie Bonpensiero, the wife of Salvatore Big Pussy Bonpensiero. Angie appeared throughout the series run, and Kalem brought depth and nuance to a character who could have been a stereotype, but instead became a fully realized woman navigating the complex world of mob wives, loyalty, survival, and eventually independence. Watching Angie evolve from a traditional housewife to a woman running her own auto body shop was one of the show's quieter but more satisfying character arcs, and Kalem played it with honesty and strength. But Toni Collem's contribution to The Sopranos went beyond acting. She also became a writer for the show, penning episodes and bringing her insider knowledge of the culture and community to stories that needed authenticity. Her writing work on The Sopranos showed that she had talents beyond performance, that she understood structure, character development, and the kind of storytelling that made the show resonate with audiences around the world. Moving from actress to writer-actress was a significant transition that not many performers successfully navigate, but Kalem did it with the same professionalism she brought to her on-screen work. After The Sopranos ended in 2007, Kalem continued to work in the industry, though she kept a lower profile than during her Sopranos years. She directed some theater productions and remained connected to the New Jersey arts community, using her experience and knowledge to support emerging talent and projects that told authentic stories about working-class life. In 2026, Toni Kalem is 69 years old, and her career represents a journey from supporting player to essential contributor. Her small role in Sister Act is part of a larger story about persistence, evolution, and finding your place in an industry that doesn't always make room for people who don't fit the standard mold. From a brief appearance in a Whoopi Goldberg comedy to becoming a memorable part of one of television's greatest dramas, Kalem's career shows that success can take many forms and come at different times. Number 16. Jim Beaver as FBI man. An FBI agent working the witness protection case in Sister Act was portrayed by Jim Beaver, and while his role was small and his screen time brief, it was part of a career that would eventually make him a cult television icon beloved by millions of fans around the world. He was born James Norman Beaver Jr. on August 12, 1950 in Laramie, Wyoming, and he was 41 years old when Sister Act began filming in 1991. In the film, Beaver played his small role with the same professionalism and commitment he would bring to every project throughout his long career, understanding that even the smallest parts need to feel like real people doing real jobs. Before Sister Act, Jim Beaver had been working steadily in Hollywood since the early 1970s, building a career primarily in television with guest appearances on countless shows. He served in the United States Marine Corps during the Vietnam War era before pursuing acting, and that military background gave him an authenticity when playing authority figures, law enforcement, and military personnel. Throughout the 80s and early 90s, Beaver became one of those character actors whose face you recognized even if you didn't know his name, appearing in everything from westerns to crime dramas to comedies. After Sister Act, Jim Beaver's career continued in the same steady pattern for years, with regular guest appearances on television shows and small roles in films. But in 2004, everything changed when he was cast as Ellsworth in the HBO Prison Deadwood, created by David Milch. Ellsworth was a prospector and voice of decency in a lawless mining camp, and Beaver played him with such warmth, honor, and quiet strength that he became a fan favorite. Deadwood was critically acclaimed and developed a passionate following, and Beaver's work on the show introduced him to a whole new level of recognition. Then, in 2005, Beaver was cast in the role that would define his career and make him a beloved figure in geek culture, Bobby Singer on the CW series Supernatural. What started as a guest appearance in the show's first season turned into a recurring role that lasted for over a decade across multiple seasons. Bobby became the surrogate father figure to the show's main characters, a gruff but loving hunter who provided wisdom, support, and a home base in a show about two brothers fighting monsters. Beaver brought such heart to the role that Bobby Singer became one of Supernatural's most beloved characters, and his catchphrase became iconic among fans. The emotional weight Beaver brought to Bobby's relationship with Sam and Dean Winchester made him essential to the show's success. Beyond acting, Jim Beaver is also a respected writer and historian. He wrote the book Life's That Way, a memoir about his wife's battle with cancer and his experience as a single father raising their young daughter while grieving and working. The book was praised for its honesty, humor, and heartbreak, showing a depth to Beaver that went far beyond his screen work. He also wrote extensively about film history and Hollywood, contributing to various publications and sharing his deep knowledge of the entertainment industry. In 2026, Jim Beaver is 75 years old, and his career is a testament to persistence, talent, and the power of showing up and doing good work even when the spotlight isn't on you. From a tiny role in Sister Act to becoming Bobby Singer, one of television's most beloved father figures, Beaver's journey shows that success in Hollywood isn't always about the big break, Sometimes it's about decades of steady work that eventually leads to the role that changes everything. And that's the legacy of Sister Act, a film about finding your voice, transforming lives, and discovering that family can appear in the most unexpected places. By 2026, some cast members built legendary careers in film, television, and music, while others like Mary Wicks, Bill Nunn, and Joseph Marr are gone but never forgotten. But the joy of that convent, the power of those voices raised together, and the laughter that filled theaters in 1992 lives on every time we rewatch. If this brought back memories, like, subscribe, and tell us which Sister Act moment still makes you smile.